Hey everyone, it looks like I got a new sound setup here. So I have headphones and I have a microphone, and I would like you guys to, along with actually doing your assignments, I would like feedback on what my sound quality is like. So, if you have your book, The Making of the West, you will notice that I only assigned you to read one chapter this week, and that's because it's a really important chapter. It's arguably one of the most important chapters in the book. Definitely one of the most salient events in modern Western political history. And by modern, I'm including obviously the early modern, so this whole time period, 1500 to now. And that is the French Revolution. So I would like you to read chapter 19 this week. I would like you to read it carefully and do the reading quiz and do the short assignments and look at the videos that I posted for you. I'm just going to kind of freeform it here. I have about 10 hours of lecture material on the French Revolution. I don't want to sit here and give you guys a 10-hour lecture now. What I really want to impress on you as I sip my coffee, because I'm doing this in the morning, is that for me, the French Revolution represents a lot of ironies within the establishment of the modern state. So, at the heart of the revolution, you have a reaction. That is a reaction to things we have been reading about previously. So, we've been reading about Louis's absolutism, and we've been reading about the divine right of kings. And as you will read this chapter, you will see how the divine right of kings and how absolutism really crashes into practical matters of the state, especially whenever you need to summon the rest of the state to pay taxes for a state that's incredibly in debt. By the time we get to the French Revolution in the 1790s, the state of France is in an incredible amount of debt. And indeed, it has to rely on its nobility collecting taxes so that it can pay that debt. But the nobility by this time have accrued so many privileges that they're not only incapable but unwilling to collect any of those taxes. This is going to create a financial crisis that is going to sort of exist comorbidly with a series of bad harvests. There's a French Revolution historian whose name escapes me right now. Jean Lefebvre, and he writes about there was a volcanic explosion in Iceland in the 1780s, and this created a series of bad harvests in France. And in France, more than other European countries, people's diets were very, very sensitive to bread price changes because something like 90% of their diet consisted of bread. So just a few bad harvests pretty much catalyzed what was already a terrible and oppressive political situation. Now, whenever I say that the French Revolution for me represents this series of great ironies, is that I think too often modern students, whenever they're talking about the French Revolution, they're very, very keen to just assume that the French Revolution is good because monarchy, bad, our government, which seems mostly related to what's going on in the revolution, is good. And that's a very simplistic, that's a very binary, and the more you look into it, it's a very nonsensical sort of way of looking at the world. One of the readings that I've given you below is you'll see under French readings of the French Revolution, on top of a video about Burke, the founder of modern conservatism. If you scroll all the way down to chapter 5 to the readings from Edmund Burke, you will see his discussions on what he believes the legacy of the French Revolution is. And he ultimately believes that the legacy of the French Revolution was not all that great. He believes that traditionalism and perennialism are these sort of very important mainstays of human society, and that whenever we start taking away traditions that we don't understand, we just sort of take them away because certain sections of the society viewed them as oppressive or associated with other oppressive parts of the society, so they decided to do away with everything, not recognizing that they're removing sort of a heart of the people that they seek to rule. The French Revolution really represents this for me. Whenever you get to things like the Thermidorian reaction, you're going to see that the French population does not feel all that liberated, especially whenever it comes to the campaign of dechristianization and the turning of Catholic churches. Churches I've seen, absolutely beautiful cathedrals, including Notre Dame, into temples of reason. And what happened is the early stages of dechristianization involved priests taking loyalty oaths, and churches were closed, or they would turn into public buildings, or they were turned into these temples. Later, they would be turned into temples of reason. And by the end of the French Revolution, you have men like Robespierre saying that the violence of the revolution, not only by his hand and all the executions happening in Paris. But also in the south, you have men like Jean-Baptiste Le Carré drowning people in the Loire River, which he calls the national bathtub, sort of very glibly and very cynically. And even Robespierre, the head of the Committee of Public Safety, he sees that the violence of the revolution has gotten out of hand. I think by the end of it, 17,000 people almost are officially executed by the state in Paris alone. Carré drowns like 4,000 people in the Loire River for anti-revolutionary activities. One of the things he supposes is that maybe we removed the Catholic soul of France too much and too quickly. And maybe religion served this stabilizing function that we didn't recognize because we sat around reading too much Voltaire and not thinking practically about how human societies operate. And so he starts to slowly reintroduce this idea of religion through this concept of the cult of reason and the cult of the supreme being. This will ultimately make Robespierre very unpopular, and it will make him easier to call out by people who already feared being called out for execution by him. So what I would like you to do is I would like you to do all the readings, especially chapter 19 in the book, because that's going to be very important. That's going to be on the test. I would like you to read about Edmund Burke. I, obviously, if you can't tell, I'm a big fan of Edmund Burke. I recognize the benefits of the French Revolution. I recognize it as a pulling away from an absolutely tyrannical system of monarchy. But as you'll see in the discussion below, the French Revolution is also considered sort of the first real stab that humanity has at totalitarianism. That is a government that tries to control every aspect of someone's life. There's a famous communist philosopher named Slavoj Žižek, and he differentiates between totalitarianism and authoritarianism. In that authoritarianism is do what I tell you, I don't care about how you feel. Totalitarianism is do what I tell you to do, but tell me how much you like doing it. And in order to achieve this, the citizen must be reshaped. It's not merely that the state tells the person what to do, it's that the state is reforming the citizen into whatever the ruling ideology is. So the people who control the state, they have all sorts of ideas, and it's not a left or right thing. In the case of the French Revolution and a few other societies, often the people at the helm of state are very, very progressive, and they believe it's the job of the state to mold the citizen into accepting a more progressive or socialistic or communistic or moralistic, whatever sort of view they have. It's the job of the state to sort of reform the citizen, because the citizen as is not enough, and it is the job of the state to moralize and create the perfect citizen, which obviously leads to bloodshed. It's an incredible temptation to violence. It's a temptation to violence that we'll see in the French Revolution. One of the ways they do this are, I've already mentioned, the cult of the supreme being. So they will suppose that one of the things standing in the way of a better democratic citizen is that the French are just too Catholic, and so we have to do it away with Catholicism. They are also concerned with the deeply entrenched divisions within French society through class, which is true. It was a feudal society. One of the ways they're going to address this is by having people change their formal addresses and pronouns, because having people change their language is sort of another way that the state can reprogram a human being to accept sort of new software. Or suppose some people believe this is a theory of humanity. This is a theory of human societies. As you're reading about the French Revolution for your discussion below, I want you to think about all the different things that the revolutionaries did. What sort of things did they try to do to reform society? I want you to pay attention to not only like pronouns and addresses and religion, but also think about perceptions of time, like the revolutionary calendar. Think of all the different ways that the revolution thought that they might use the state to reform society in their image. Anyway, I read all your responses last week, and I really, really enjoyed them. I really enjoy this class, and I think you're all doing a great job. If you have any questions about the book, if you have any questions about this week, do not hesitate to email me. I always answer within 24 hours. So, I'll see you down below. I'm about to go add to that discussion down there. All right? So, take it easy and have a happy Halloween, you guys.